Hello everyone, good morning and welcome to today's The Hindu News Analysis. Myself Nitin K. Biju, I'll be appearing for the civil service interview this year. Before going to the article, I would like to bring your attention to a very important quote here. Tough times don't last, tough people do. As UPSC aspirants and during these times of corona, this quote is very important for us. So this corona will pass. One day will come when corona is no more. But what we come out after these times of corona, whether we come as a strong person or whether we come out as a weaker person, it is in our hands. So be the tough person, concentrate on your studies. So, coming to today's news articles, we'll be discussing about six important articles which are covered in the newspaper today. So, this is the first page of the newspaper. Here we can see that the important news is the lockdown related news. One is the lockdown is extended for 2 more weeks till May 17th, and the public transport remained closed, right? Also, the health ministry has identified 130 districts as red zones. Red zones where the restrictions will be more compared to the orange and the green zones. We know that the health ministry has classified different districts into three types of zones: red zones, orange zones, and green zones. So, and relaxations, they have been given relaxations depending on the zones. Also, railway runs Shramik specials to ferry stranded. So, the Shramik specials are the train which will bring back the migrants, the tourists, the students, and other people who are stranded in different states. So, just remember the name of the train, Shramik Special. Also, this is another important article which we'll be discussing in the coming slides. Direct revenues defy lockdown, jump to 36.6% in April. So here the direct taxes have increased. That's what they are talking about. So before moving to the first article, I want you to pause for a second and please attempt the question by yourself. This is on tuberculosis. Okay. After discussing the relevant article, we'll come back to the question again. Now coming to the first article, WHO raises concern over the use of BCG vaccine. So, what is the article about? In a letter published in the Lancet, the WHO Director General have highlighted a few critical issues over the use of BCG vaccine for COVID 19. So, what is this BCG vaccine? BCG vaccine is a vaccine which is used to treat tuberculosis. Also, there were news that those who already have taken the BCG vaccine, they have better immunity against COVID-19, because for example in India, BCG vaccine is taken universally during the childhood times. So that is the reason why Indians are having more immunity against COVID-19. That is what a hypothesis is. It's not confirmed, but the research is going on. So they underscore the importance of randomized controlled trials of vaccine. So the WHO is telling that before making any conclusions, we have to do many experiments, random trials, right? So also a study posted on March 28, it said that countries that have a universal BCG vaccine and reduced coronavirus cases have reduced coronavirus cases and even deaths. For example, in countries like consider the Iberian countries of Portugal and Spain. Portugal has universal BCG vaccine, whereas Spain doesn't have. So, and if you compare the cases, also Portugal is having very less cases compared to Spain, which is having an explosion of cases, right? So that was another evidence which was cited for using BCG vaccine against COVID 19. Anyway, the author of the journal, they cited five reasons the country should wait before making any conclusions on BCG vaccines, which you can just read here. It's not much important from the UPSC perspective. Also, there's another issue. If BCG vaccine is in really effective for the COVID-19, then it will create another issue, that is the using the vaccine without evidence of its benefit. It could further jeopardize the vaccine supply, which is already in short, to protect children against disseminated TB in high risk countries. So, if every vaccine is diverted for COVID 19, if the BCG vaccines are diverted for COVID 19, then the fight against tuberculosis will face a hard hit and the children will be affected and it will create long term consequences. This is what the article is talking about. Here you can just make a note of this name of the journal, that is the Lancet. It is a weekly journal which is based on medicine research findings, etc. Okay, so that is all about this article. As we already see, so what is this BCG vaccine? It is called a Bacillus calmette-guerin. It is a vaccine which is primarily used against tuberculosis. Okay, in countries where tuberculosis or leprosy is common, one dose is recommended in healthy babies as close to the time of birth as possible. Now, what is this tuberculosis? It is an infectious disease usually caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis bacteria, that is MTB bacteria. Can be asked as a prelims statement. Also, tuberculosis generally affects the lungs but can also spread to other parts of the body. This is about tuberculosis. Coming to the practice question, consider the following about tuberculosis. First statement, tuberculosis is a viral infection. Second statement, India targets elimination of tuberculosis by 2025. Which of the above statements are correct? So, the first statement, tuberculosis is a viral infection. It is wrong because we have already seen that it is caused by a bacteria, not by a virus. Then the name of the bacteria is MTB, right? Mycobacterium, Mycobacterium tuberculosis bacteria, right? So, first statement is wrong. And second statement, India targets elimination of tuberculosis by 2025. It is a right statement because India has a plan to eliminate tuberculosis by this year, 2025, which is actually 5 years earlier than the global target. The global target of elimination of tuberculosis is 2030, whereas India's target is 2025. So the correct statement is 2 only, that is option B. Please make a note of this India's target of elimination. Okay, that is very important for prelims. Now coming to the second article, direct taxes revenues defy lockdown jump 36.6% in April. As we all know, due to the lockdown, the revenues are reducing, but the direct taxes have registered a growth of 36.6% compared to the previous April. In April 2020, it jumped to 36.6% compared to the April 2019, right? So it has shown a healthy growth in April despite the nationwide lockdown and grew by 36%. Also, income tax collection. So there are, what is this direct tax and indirect tax? As we all know, direct tax includes income tax and corporate tax, right? So here they are breaking up into income tax collection was around 19,000 crore, whereas corporate tax was around 14,000 crore. Okay, and coming to the region wise report, Mumbai reported a massive 500% growth, whereas Bangalore has reported a 160% growth. These are the areas where the collection growth have increased. Whereas even though direct tax is growing, the indirect tax is showing a bleak forecast, as the GST and all are showing a very reduced collection of revenues. Okay, so only the direct tax was growing. That is the article about. Coming to what direct taxes and what indirect taxes. A direct tax is paid by an individual or organization to the imposing entity, that is the government. So if a person pays a tax directly to the government, it is called direct tax. Even if a corporate entity pays a tax directly to the government, that is called direct tax, right? Both are direct tax. So examples are income tax and corporate tax. Now coming to the indirect tax, what is the difference here? An indirect tax is collected by one entity in the supply chain, usually a producer or retailer, and is paid to the government, but it is passed on to the consumer as a part of the purchase price of the goods or service. So in simple terms, what it is, if I am a consumer, I am paying the tax, but I am not paying the tax directly to the government. I am paying the tax to an intermediary, for example, a producer or retailer, in exchange for goods or services, and that producer or retailer is paying to the government. So there is an intermediate between me and the government. That intermediate is the producer or the retailer. For example, if you go to a hotel and or a hotel restaurant and eat some food, you will get a bill and you can see that GST will be levied on that, and some amount will be deducted as GST, right? So whom you are paying the bill? You are not paying the bill to the government directly. You are giving the money to the owner of the restaurant, right? Cashier of the restaurant. You will be paying there and he will be indirectly paying to the government. So this is an example of indirect tax. So example is GST. Please go through the other indirect taxes also. There are many other indirect tax, and go through GST, what GST is and which all are the indirect taxes subsumed under GST. Okay, now coming to the editorial of the day, recovering early. So here the news is that the health ministry has just said that the percentage of recoveries currently stand at over 25%, almost double of what it was 2 weeks ago. So what is this recovery rate? Recovery rate is the number of people who have recovered from the corona pandemic compared to the total number of people who are affected, right? So The worst outcome encountered is among the elder population, right? Translating into a fatality rate of around 51% for Indians older than 60. So these statistics you don't have to remember, because in the coming days it will keep on changing. So at the end, overall statistics, if it comes, you can learn it. So what to note is, it is whether the recovery or death. Not all cases are recorded for a variety of reasons. Due to many reasons, the numbers are can be different actually. Why? Because there may be untested people who have recovered. Also, in the long term, most recover from the infection. So, one thing, it is very important to find positive cases very early by increasing the testing and the assessing the pace of recovery, etc. Right. Also, in terms of deaths, there could be unknown fatalities caused by COVID-19 outside hospitals. So, there are two reasons given here. There might be people who got COVID and got recovered also, but the hospital, they didn't go to the hospital. That can be one case, and there can be deaths outside the hospital due to COVID-19, which is not recorded also. So these can be the two reasons why the calculations might be different than the actual estimate which is told by the health ministry. So compare, so as you all know, the death rate in India is comparatively low compared to the other countries. It is estimated at around 3.2%, and this low percentage of death rate is a topic for systematic study. What are the reason? What are the causes for this low fatalities? It can be the BCG vaccine, it can be inherent immunity, or whatever it is. It is a topic of systematic study. Also, one thing is, there are a very less severely distressed patients in the hospital in India compared to the experience abroad. So here they are telling that the most of the patients are either mildly affected or moderately affected, not severely affected. This is in contrast to the world country, other countries. So there are many hypotheses for this less dismal outcome in India based on the impact of climate, benefits of immunization like BCG, and other possible factors. But these are the factors which are not tested now. But while India's fatalities may be low and there is an improved recovery rate, these things will help improve the economy. But there is a genuine worry that the patients with known COVID-19 conditions are at a greater risk for poor health comes due to the lack of access to care during the pandemic. As we all know, due to the excessive focus on COVID-19, the people with other diseases are not being taken care of. This can actually increase the fatalities in the non-COVID conditions also. So anyway, the way forward, the public health strategy for COVID-19 has to sharply focus on helping people determine their infection status through widely available testing. Testing is very important, and this will enable selective quarantining, planning of the welfare measures, and participation of people who are recovered in the trials for potential therapies. What was a potential therapy which we discussed earlier? It is called convalescent plasma transfusion, where the antibodies from the body of a recovered patient is given to the patient who is suffering from the COVID. Please go through the previous videos to get an idea of this convalescent plasma transfusion. So this is what the article is talking about. Coming to the second editorial, ominous contraction. So this is a continuation of yesterday's news article which we already discussed regarding the fall in the growth rates of the 8 core sectors, right? So the latest data on the core sector output is signaling that considerable economic pain lies ahead in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic. So the figures were released by the Commerce Ministry. What were those figures? Figures was like the output at the petroleum refineries reduced by 0.5%, and there was a 7.2% reduction in the electricity output, 13% contraction in the steel production, etc. So these were the part of the 8 core sectors, right? Also, with all the non-essential industries and commercial establishment were shut down as a part of the lockdown, the demand for electricity declined by more than 9% in March. This is the reason why the contractions are happening, right, in the electricity sector. As we already seen, 7.2% contraction in the electricity sector. And out of those 8 core sectors, the only one sector which had a positive figure is the coal sector, and its output has expanded to 4%. Also, with the construction sector hit hard by lockdown and likely to face serious labor supply issues even after the economy gradually reopens, cement may also see a production sink. So cement is a part of the eight core sectors. So here what the most important fact for prelims is that you should know which all are the core sectors, which all are the eight core sectors, and you should know the weightage of each of the core sectors in the index called IIP, Index of Industrial Production. How much each of this core sector contribute to IIP. This is very important for prelims perspective. Also, as I already told, with the 8 major industries having a weight of 40.3% in the IIP, it is certain to drag the industrial output as a whole to the negative territory. That is what the article is talking about. So, what the government must do to improve the situation? The government must increase the public spending on infrastructure once the lockdown eases in the country. So, that is what the way forward is about. Now coming to the important concept of index of industrial production, we have already discussed this yesterday, still we will have a revision today. So IIP is an index that shows the growth rates in different industry groups, as we have already seen different industry groups like electricity is there, cement, coal, okay, petroleum refineries, etc. So this will show the growth rates in different industry groups in a fixed period of time. And who compiles this? The Central Statistical Organization of the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. They compile this in a monthly basis. Okay, and the base year is for 2011-2012. This we have already discussed in detail yesterday. And the 8 core industries which we are talking about in the article, they represent around 40% of the weight of the items that are included in the IIP. Okay, these are the important prelims facts which you must be learning along with other indicators like WPI, CPI and all. Okay. So as we already talked, these are the 8 core industries: electricity, steel, refinery, crude oil, coal, cement, natural gas, fertilizers. So have a note, take a note of these 8 core industries. Now coming to the next article, Taiwan's coronavirus protocol shows how it is done. So as we all know, Taiwan is a country which is a neighbor of China. Okay, neighbor of China, and there are many political issues between Taiwan and China. We'll discuss it. So here the article discusses about the effective coronavirus strategy which is done by Taiwan and how the world should be utilizing the expertise of Taiwan in fighting the coronavirus pandemic. So as we all know, pandemics can spread rapidly around the world because of the ease of international transportation. After globalization and all, international traveling has become easier as well as cheaper. So the pandemics have a great chance of just spreading anything like the recent coronavirus pandemic. So this is the data as of April 8, around 1.35 million people were affected and 79,000 people have died. This has increased very much now. So what was Taiwan's strategy? This can be used as a case study. This can be used as a case study under GS2 in the health as well as GS3 in the disaster management. Okay, so just note some points what Taiwan has done. So, as you all know, Taiwan was also affected by the SARS virus 17 years ago. So, after that, Taiwan was in a constant readiness to the threat of emerging infectious disease. So, what they have done as early as in December 31st, 2019, in that time, no one in the world, like we all never knew about coronavirus, right? We all never knew about this COVID-19 pandemic, I guess. So, at that time, Taiwan began implementing onboard quarantine of direct flights which were coming from the Wuhan in China. Okay, on and even on Jan 2nd, 2020, Taiwan established a response team for the disease. So Taiwan's efforts, I mean, they started the response very fast in December 31st and Jan 2nd itself. And as we all know, all other countries started it very late. So because of all this, Taiwan is ranked 123 among 183 countries in terms of confirmed cases per million people. So this is very relevant because Taiwan is a neighbor of China. Taiwan is a maritime neighbor of China. Taiwan is an island. So though it is a maritime neighbor of China, right? Also, they have used the technology in a better manner to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. They have implemented dynamic plans concerning border quarantine measures, including onboard quarantine, fever screening, health declarations, and a 14-day home quarantine for passengers arriving from the nations it has listed. Moreover, they have established an electronic system for entry quarantine, which allows the passengers with a local mobile phone number to fill in health information using a mobile phone. So using technology, right? A health declaration will pass will be then be sent to them as a text message. So the good use of technology is being said here. Also, for those who undergo home quarantine in isolation, the government is working with a telecom operator to allow GPS tracking of their locations. So the people who are in quarantine, the locations are being tracked also. This is very relevant because yesterday we have seen that in the news, in the newspaper we have seen that in Bangalore, around 4 people they escaped the quarantine and went to their native areas, right? So these kind of escaping the quarantine can be avoided using GPS, tracking the GPS locations. Also, Taiwan has increased its laboratory testing capacity. Also, it has also designated 50 regional hospitals and medical centers and 167 community hospitals and clinics to create a tiered system for testing. Just note down all these points so it can be used in the mains examination. Also, it has banned the export of surgical mask. Also, one important thing is that Taiwan is not even a member of WHO. Why it is not even a member of WHO? Because of the issues it has with China. Many countries doesn't recognize, most of the countries doesn't recognize Taiwan as a country. Okay, this political issue is very important. It is related with the one China policy. I'll be briefly telling the story in the coming slide. So, as we already told, Taiwan had been long been excluded from the WHO due to political considerations. What that story is, I'll be telling in the next slide. Anyway, WHO, though Taiwan is not a member of WHO should not neglect the contribution of Taiwan to the global health security of any nation, right? So this is what the article is talking about. The article is written by the health minister of Taiwan. So the article is more in praise to the Taiwan, right? So now what is this one China policy? One China policy is a policy asserting that there is only one sovereign state under the name China, as opposed to the idea that there are two states, that is the PRC, People's Republic of China, and the ROC, Republic of China. So what is this? We have to go back to history to learn about, to understand this thing. What happened is till 1949, China was ruled by ROC, Republic of China. Okay, and in 1949, what happened? As we all know, the revolution happened. The revolution happened in the leadership of Mao, right? So, and the existing government was ousted. So, what did the existing government do? The ROC, that is the ROC, they escaped to Taiwan. They escaped to Taiwan, which was already a part of China. Okay, so they escaped to Taiwan and they started a government there, and the mainland China was ruled by the PRC. So what is happening? Like both of them are claiming to, both of them have China in their name, right? So China, the PRC is telling that there is only one China, and that is the PRC which is ruling the mainland China. What ROC is telling? ROC is telling that China belongs to them, right? Also, they want Taiwan to be a separate country. They want to admit it. They want to admit itself to the UN, the WHO, and all. We have seen that it's not a member of WHO and all. But Taiwan is a economically developed nation with high per capita income and all. So this is the story about it. Please, for more details, just Google One China policy and you will understand the story related to it. So as we have seen, this is the mainland China marked in purple, and this is Taiwan marked in Taiwan and its other islands which are under its control. It is marked in orange, right? So the Taipei is the capital of Taiwan. So despite the proximity this much with China, their COVID cases are very less. So that was the article. What was the article talking about? Coming to the next article, it's about food, nutrition, and livelihood security. So this article is talking about like how to ensure different dimensions of food security in this coronavirus pandemic and how to ensure livelihood for people. So these are the articles which are these are the points which the article is talking about. So the current COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the problems of food, nutrition, and livelihood security confronted by the large number of people, rural people, and even migrants to cities. Okay, so the article is telling that there are different dimensions of food security. The first one is the availability of the food in the market, and this is directly proportional to the production of the food, right? So luckily, due to the green revolution and all, we have enough food in the market and even in the government godowns, right? So there is no lack of food in terms of quantity. We have the food, And second, there's a second dimension as the second dimension is the access to food, whether the which is a function of the purchasing power, right? So it's like whether a person can have the purchasing power to buy the food, whether he has the money. So that is the second dimension of food security. In that area also, fortunately, the government through various acts like NFSA, National Food Security Act, and the PDS have assured that like most of the Indians have access to food in this dimension also. Also the government has provided more exemptions also, more quantity of food is being given under PDS and all, right? But it will be better if the basket is widened by including millets, pulses, and oil also, apart from the cereals which is already given. Also, another important thing is we should be ensuring that steps are taken to avoid the hidden hunger caused by deficiency of micronutrients in the diet. So this hidden hunger, it is a very important concept. It is important for both prelims as well as mains perspective. From prelims perspective, you have to know what is the definition of hidden hunger. It is the deficiency of the micronutrients in the diet. People might be eating food, whether the important micronutrients which are required, whether it is there in the food or not, that is said by the concept of hidden hunger. Now, food security and access to nutritious good quality food is also a it is also contingent on job security. If people have job, then only they can afford to buy the food, right? So if job security is threatened, then the food security as well as the nutrition security is threatened. So here they have mentioned about two concepts: food security and nutrition security. Please go through these two keywords, see what is the main difference between these two similar looking keywords. Okay, so we have to ensure that people do not lose their jobs, and one way of doing this is to ensure the value addition to primary products. So how the value addition can be done? An example given is like the Amul model. The Amul model provides a good example from the dairy sector of improved incomes to milk producers through value addition. So Amul have a wide range of products, right? Like butter, this, that, and all. So that is an example of value addition. Instead of just producing milk, they are doing value addition, and they are producing other items also, other items, and they'll be getting more incomes. The farmers also will be the dairy farmers are also getting more incomes due to this value addition. So a similar approach should be done in the other farming sector also. That is what the article is telling. Similar attention can be done to horticulture sector also. So what is this horticulture sector? It is related to the fruits and vegetables, right? Now coming to work under Manrega, we should be increasing the work under Manrega, right? Also, not only increasing the work under Manrega, we should be able to change the definition of a worker under Manrega. As far till now, Manrega is concerned applied only for unskilled manual work and not for skilled labor, right? So this creates a only unskilled work like construction, all those things are being done in under Manrega. So this should be expanded to include skilled workers also. Also, the women, considering the women farmers, they are doing other work also. For example, apart from farming, they engage in a range of essential care tasks, including caring for children, the elderly, and the sick people. So these things also should be considered as work, so that they would be remunerated, right? Also, coming to the third dimension, we have already discussed two dimension of food. That is, one is the availability of food, second is the accessibility of food, and the third one is the absorption of food. So this you can write as a flowchart in the mains answer writing for mains answers for fetching more marks. The three dimensions of food security. So coming to the third dimension, absorption of food, or it is by the body, absorption of food by the body or its utilization. How it is dependent on many factors like sanitation, drinking water, and other non-food factors, including the public health services, right? The lack of adequate clean water in particular has come to the fore in both rural areas and urban slums in the context of COVID-19, especially when one of the key measures to avoid transmission of COVID-19 was to wash your hands frequently, right? So still the irrespective of this important thing, the availability of clean water is very less in these places. Also, if you are able to ensure these three things, that is food availability, food access, and food absorption, then we have a fairly robust system of food and nutrition security. So the article discusses about three main dimensions. I hope you understood it. Through a combination of farmers cooperation, technological upgrading, and favorable public policies in procurement, pricing, and distribution, we can deal with the fallouts of the pandemic. So this is a very good article from the mains perspective. Just remember the three dimensions of food security. Now coming to Manrega, so it is a labor law and social security measure that aims to guarantee the right to work, and it was passed in September 2005. Now, this is a very important point. It aims to enhance livelihood security in rural areas only. Okay, so the rural it doesn't include urban areas, and it tries to provide 100 days of wage employment. If 100 days is not provided, then unemployment allowance will be provided, right? Also, to every household whose adult members volunteer to do unskilled manual work. So this unskilled becomes another keyword. Skilled work is not included under Manrega, right? Now, again, the definition of hidden hunger. It is also called as micronutrient deficiencies occurs when the quality of the food that people eat does not meet the nutrient requirements. So they are not getting essential vitamins and minerals they need for growth and development. So this causes this is an issue under nutritional security. Okay, food security focuses more on quantity, whereas nutrition security focuses on the quality of the food you eat. So that is an important thing. So that's all about today's important articles. I hope you like the video. Please press the like button, subscribe the channel, and share it with your friends. Have a great day. Thank you.